Hello and welcome to the British Gaming Podcast for the 14th of May 2015. This is Sam Webster. You may remember I did one of these a while ago with Charlie Cade. It was actually quite a lot of fun and I want to make it a regular thing, so here we are. At the moment I can't promise if it's going to be weekly, fortnightly, monthly, but we will figure that out as we go. With me today is a very good friend of mine, goes all the way back to primary school, Mr. Richard Savage.
Hello. Very nice of you to have me on. Thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem at all. It's an absolute honour. So Richie is big Mega Drive fan, big Sega fan in general.
Very much so, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Goes all the way back for both of us, that one.
Oh god, yeah. I think that's actually the basis of our friendship in general.
I think a lot of it is, yeah. I think if we didn't have that, we probably wouldn't be friends.
What are you trying to say about me, boy?
I'm joking, of course. I'm joking, of course.
But I actually ended up with your old Sega Saturn at one point, and then you wanted to buy it back off me.
Yes, that is possibly one of the worst decisions I ever made in my life, but then you made up for it quite nicely, because you then went and bought me one several years later, didn't you?
Oh, yes, that was fun. Those were the days when... I've moved city since, but I used to be able to just walk in this guy's house whether he was there or not. I just sort of walked in, threw him a Sega Saturn and Die Hard Arcade, which if you haven't played, please go get hold of.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and the look on this guy's face, before he could even respond, I was out the door again.
Yeah, and I still have it to this day, and it still does get a play every so often. Me and my sister like to play Die Hard Arcade every so often. It's one we both remember, because I remember playing that, oh god, when it used to be in one of the arcades in Great Yarmouth, which is a little city on the coast. For those who don't know.
Wroxham? I remember Wroxham having one.
Well, Wroxham's not on the coast, is it? Wroxham's not far, just outside of Norwich. But yeah, there was an arcade, and I couldn't tell you the name of it, but I remember which one it is. And when I go past it, I always remember the good times. But that was back when, obviously, when you had to pay for it. Having it on the Sega Saturn is much more convenient.
Unless you were playing Croc. If you were playing Croc, you had no head.
Yeah. But then that kind of made it charming in its own way, didn't it? So.
Did we ever get a chance to, because I'd moved away by the time I got my Dreamcast, I don't know if we ever sat down and played Dynamite Cop together.
No, I mean, we've had this conversation not so long ago, actually. I've never played Dynamite Cop, not once. And I really should, obviously it being quite the spiritual successor and to one of my favourite games. So, absolutely, yeah, next time we see each other, whenever that is, we definitely should.
It's more than a spiritual successor. In fact, Japan, Dynamite Cop is Dynamite Cop 2, and Die Hard Arcade is Dynamite Cop 1.
Ah, well, there you go. There's a little bit of trivia for me. Something I should know, really.
Yeah, you really should. But
I didn't.
Speaking of spiritual successors, the guy behind Castlevania, whose name escapes me right now, is currently got a Kickstarter going nearly at $2 million at the time of recording. Koji Igarashi, that's the guy's name, for a game called Bloodstained, which is essentially Castlevania by any other name.
I'm going to be really, probably quite blasphemous here and say I have no idea anything about this Kickstarter or about Castlevania, because I've never played that either.
Okay. Have you played a Metroid game before?
I have not played a Metroid game either. I've played as Samus on Smash Brothers. Does that count?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
So, how to
I'm looking at it now, though, and it does look good, I have to be honest.
You get the concept of a Metroidvania.
Oh, yeah, of course I do, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We did actually get one. I know we grew up Sega fanboys, but we did actually get a Castlevania on the Mega Drive.
Oh, I never had that one, but then I wasn't in charge of the games I got.
Same.
I played what I got bought, and in this case, Castlevania wasn't one of them.
You had to either save up a lot of pocket money, wait for your birthday, or wait for Christmas, and then when you got that game, you damn well had to make it last.
Yeah, I remember playing a lot of one of the old original Mortal Kombat games back in the day. That was one of the ones I did have.
No, I don't remember playing Mortal Kombat with you. I remember the only fighting game I remember us playing, there are two of them. Early on was, trying to think of the name of it, Star Wars Masters of Terraskasi.
Oh yeah, absolute classic that is.
Awful fighting game though.
Oh yeah, it's a terrible game, yeah, but obviously it was so much fun. Back then we didn't know any better. We didn't know it was terrible, so it was fantastic at the time.
I got an awful, awful 3D platformer from my mum once called Jersey Devil on the PlayStation 1, and it was sort of one of those things, she came home with it, and me and my brother sort of looked at each other as if to say, we don't know what this is, it looks fairly budget, and we're stuck with it. So smile and thank her.
I remember one of the worst games I had was for the PS1. I don't know if you ever played it, I shouldn't imagine you would, and God help you if you have. It was the Spice Girls video game. That was on the PS1.
God, I did play that.
That was awful, that was.
We used to rent games from this little store in Watton called Adcock's. Terrible place. They overpriced everything because they knew they were the only video game store in town, unless you wanted to get on the bus to Norwich and back again. So they'd just put an extra tenner on everything because they knew you'd pay it. A lack of competition is a horrible thing.
Certainly.
We were renting Parappa the Rapper, and my mother saw the Spice Girls game and she rented that. We didn't get to play any Parappa the Rapper that weekend.
Parappa the Rapper, a classic game. I still listen to the music from that every so often. Boot that up on YouTube and have a quick listen while I'm doing something else. What a classic game. I never played the sequel to it, though. There was a sequel to that game. Am I right in saying that?
There are 2 sequels.
I've never played either of them.
There's Jamalami, which is on PSN, so if you've got a PS3 or PS... Well, it'd have to be a PS3, actually. You can go on the PSN store and download that. I think it's like $3.99, I think I paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you'll hate me for this because I found it at a car boot for 50p. Parappa the Rapper 2 on the PlayStation 2.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Was it any good, though?
Yeah, it's okay, but it's nothing on the original, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm currently looking at the Wikipedia page for Spice World, the video game, and it got an average score of 4 out of 10.
That sounds about right. The 3D models on that thing were nightmare fuel, absolute nightmare fuel.
Oh, what a piece of rubbish.
Yeah, let's never speak of it again.
Deal.
You know I'm going to get someone comment now being like, do a review or a let's play of it, we want to see it.
I actively encourage that, actually. If anyone is listening to this, hopefully, fingers crossed, I recommend you spam the comments with that, because I would love to see that review. I'd love to see you have to review that. That would be fantastic.
Well, I think the Americans in particular would get curious, because I'm not sure if they got it or not.
I shouldn't imagine they got... Oh, no, did release in there. It released June 1998 here, and then July 1998 in North America.
Jesus.
I don't know if anyone there played it or bought it, but they certainly got it.
Saying about, if anyone is listening, I'm now thinking back to what I said about my mum and Jersey Devil, and I'm just like, ooh, if she listens to this, she's going to be aware. I'm like, thanks for the crappy platformer.
Well, at least you were gracious about it. I mean, lots of kids are a lot worse than that, so at least you were grateful.
I saved up a whole bunch of pocket money. It was like £5 a month or something we got. And it was making all the tea, doing all the washing and the ironing and that kind of stuff. It was slave labour, really.
Yeah, well, that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why you have kids, right?
Exactly, yeah. Get them to do shit for you.
But I saved that up for a good sort of year, and I went and bought a good platformer by the name of Banjo-Tooie.
Yes. Fantastic.
Adcock stiffed me on that too, actually.
So did you rent it or did you buy it? You bought it, I'm guessing. Got it.
$64.99.
How, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, can you imagine paying $64.99 for a game?
Well, we're not far off that, to be honest, but it feels a lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, it's because I bought the collector's edition, but I just paid $17... Not of Banjo-Tooie. There was no collector's edition of Banjo-Tooie, but I've ordered the collector's edition of Batman Arkham Knight because it comes with a badass Batman statue and, like, a comic and some other stuff. So it's $79.99 down up front. And then the season pass, which these things are getting bloody ridiculous. They don't even tell you what's going to be in them up front anymore. $32.99 for a goddamn season pass. I've paid less than that for full games.
Yeah, I was going to say, what could that possibly get you? You'd have to get you a whole another game, hopefully. Well, how do they get away with that? How do they get away with that?
Because we keep paying it?
Yeah, that's true, yeah. You stop bloody buying it, it wouldn't be a problem.
Here's the problem with this one, though. It's got story DLC in the season pass, and you can play as Batgirl.
Yeah, I did read that, actually.
Yeah, it sort of brings you to the point where you're thinking... Because, like, I'm okay with DLC that's genuinely made after the game has shipped. Like, I understand from the games design course and everything that you finish a game, and there's like a 2-month period where, the DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever are being pressed, it's getting its rating, it's being manufactured and sent out, all the rest of it. And during that time, your 3D modelers, your environment artists, all the rest of it, they ain't doing anything. So you might as well get them working on something, and that's, to a degree I will tolerate day one DLC if it's made during that period. But with this, it feels to me like you're going to have to buy and play that DLC in order to actually get the full experience. It feels like the DLC was penned and planned at the same time as the main game, and that really annoys me, because then it becomes sort of obligatory.
Yeah, well, I think there is a lot more of that these days. I mean, you see it in a lot of instances, don't you? DLC becoming... Well, on this DLC, I mean, it's the biggest culprit of that. I don't know if that's the case in this instance, but on this DLC is the real worst, is the lowest they can get, I think, is when they've done it all in development. It's there and done, and all you need is a magic number to put in, and it's suddenly unlocked.
You mean when you go on and sort of like you pay for the DLC and then you realise the download is only 254 KB?
Yeah, exactly, that sort of thing, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, like, no way are you downloading anything important. That's just removing a wall, isn't it?
Precisely, yeah. Something that's already on disc. I mean, to charge you extra for that, it should be criminal. I don't understand how it can't be criminal.
Here's a weird thing, though. I mean, like, Capcom, yes, they are really, really bad for it. They've been
they got a lot of flack for that, didn't they?
Oh, hell yeah. But there are instances, I mean, people went through the data for Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and they were like, Jill's already on the disc, because there are files for her. And they were right, she was there. But there have been other occasions, and none spring to mind right now, because they are few and far between, where while the game's being developed, the DLC is being planned out. So they put in little things so that when the DLC hits, it's going to be compatible, they know it's not going to cause any issues, and sort of the foundation is there, even if the meat isn't. And
yes.
Sometimes people come across those files, and they go, oh, the DLC's already on the disc. And you have to ask them, well, if the DLC was already on the disc, why was the download half a gig?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the best people for DLC, I think, is probably someone like Nintendo. They've done it so well recently. I don't know how closely you followed it, so I know Nintendo's not really your scene much anymore. But
I don't think Nintendo's ever been either of our scenes. I think.
Oh, I don't know. I love my 3DS. I couldn't go anywhere without my 3DS. I absolutely love the damn thing. Still playing through. I'm currently playing through Pokemon Sapphire at the moment, the new one, Alpha Sapphire, or whatever it is.
For a moment there, I was so worried you were going to say Pokemon Shuffle.
I think I got that as a download or something like that. I got a couple of games downloaded to my 3DS. It was really weird. I don't know where they came from. What was that about?
It's a free-to-play game for the 3DS. It's like a block puzzle gamey thing, but you've got so many tokens, and like each time you play a level, it takes one token, and then they've got microtransactions, so you can buy more tokens to the game, or you can wait a set amount of hours for it to refresh. It feels like Nintendo testing the water before their recent decision to start making mobile games.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I've only saw it come on there today, so that doesn't surprise me too much. Now you say it, I'm not surprised of what you say it is, because I thought it was a bit weird that these things appeared for free. That's obviously what it is.
Yeah.
It's like looking through the Android marketplace or whatever, and all these free games. Oh, brilliant! All these free games, and then you can't do anything in them without paying for it. Like, I don't know if you've ever played Candy Crush, but I sometimes like to play it because it's addictive. I won't lie, it is fun. And you get to these points.
I refuse to support King, you see.
Well, I don't support them in that I've never ever given them any money. Maybe I've contributed towards advertising or something, but there isn't any adverts that I've seen. But you get these bits where you come to the end of a set of levels, I think it's every sort of 20, 25 levels, where you have a choice. You can either wait 3 days to unlock the next levels, or you can pay them, 3 days, or you can pay them a set amount of money. I don't know how much the amount of money is because I never looked, but I just wait 3 days.
I'll save you 3 days. I play a game that's very similar to Candy Crush. It's from Sony. It's called Knack's Quest. So it's a companion game for Knack on PS4, and the game came with my PS4. It was a surprising amount of fun. It's quite old school in a lot of its designs. I think you'd particularly enjoy it.
I think I remember seeing this in your video, actually.
Yeah, the 10 underrated games video.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Plug.
Go and check it out. It's a very good video. Go and have a look.
Thank you. But this is a companion app, and in the main game you can find these hidden chests, and it's got parts for upgrades, essentially. So you can find them in the game in the chests, or you can play this app. And if you get high scores, then you unlock these parts, and you can send it over to the main game to upgrade your guy.
Right.
And it plays just like Candy Crush. It's, swipe to match 4 of the same thing. And, yeah, I can sit and play that for hours.
Yeah, it's a tried and tested formula.
Yeah, well, I've probably sunk more hours into Knack's Quest than I have Knack itself. It's scary, these simple games, they work.
Well, that is why people like them so much, and that's why there's such a focus on it. If you look on the App Store, on like Android, all the games are really basic. Well, I mean, they're all rip-offs of games that already exist. Like Candy Crush is obviously a massive rip-off of Bejeweled, but then they took it and they made it a lot prettier. I won't lie. I enjoy it more than I have enjoyed Bejeweled. I had Bejeweled on my phone, and it's a good game. It's a classic, but it doesn't play as fun and as over the top as Candy Crush does.
No. Okay, so it's sort of the personality that they put onto the game and the flavour that they put onto the game.
Yeah, absolutely. But as you say, basic games are the best games usually. It's a simple idea that does the most, that sells the most. Something like, well, just to sidetrack completely, something like Minecraft, the simplest idea of basically electronic Lego. It's taken an idea that already exists, expanding on it, and it's just absolutely exploded, as we all know.
But even that wasn't the first of its kind.
Oh no, I mean, that was a clone of Dungeon Keeper, wasn't it, or whatever it was called?
Dungeon Keeper, no.
Something like that, was it? What am I thinking of then?
With Dungeon Keeper.
What am I thinking of then?
It's escaped me again. But it sort of, in a way, brings me back to Bloodstained, because there are a lot of games cropping up now which are famous games and famous series, but just by a different name. Only the twist is that they're by the original creators.
Yes.
So Bloodstained we mentioned. There's also Yooka-Laylee, which is ex-Rare developers making sort of a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, which we touched upon earlier as being just a brilliant platformer series. That's at 1.58 million at time of recording. And we've, of course, had Mighty Number 9 by Keiji Inafune, which is essentially Mega Man by any other name.
Yeah.
What I wouldn't be surprised of, though, is we've had all this stuff with Konami lately, Hideo Kojima's name being removed from Metal Gear, etc. What do you think the chances are of seeing a Hideo Kojima Kickstarter for a spiritual successor to Metal Gear?
I don't know if that would be his thing. I don't know if he's that kind of guy. I think he might have a bit too much pride for something like that. Yeah. I don't know if he'd be willing to go down that route. I mean, he's not going to be hard for him to find another company to work for. Does he really need a Kickstarter? And I know a lot of companies, big companies, do that. I mean, Harmonix recently did a Kickstarter, didn't they? And they're a company that should have a lot of money after all their success with Rock Band, but they did a Kickstarter for their new Amplitude game. And that did really well, that did.
A lot of people are now seeing Kickstarter as like a pre-order system, and I think they're also saying, look, because people are trying to sell you pre-orders on games all the time, get this free DLC if you pre-order, get this exclusive Steelbook case if you pre-order, and I think Kickstarter is taking that pre-order culture to the extreme. Well, let's get them to pay for their copy of the game before we've even started development. Let's just sell them on the idea, get their money, and then we'll make it.
Yeah, but the only difference with that is if the Kickstarter doesn't meet, at least they do get the money back. Unlike something like Early Access, which is the devil's work, in my opinion.
Here's a weird thing. I mean, I've done Kickstarter before for my comic that I put out. And
yes.
Again, plug. But
also very good and should be checked out.
Thank you, again. But here's the weird thing. People see that big old number on a Kickstarter campaign. Unfortunately, mine was nowhere near as big. It was about £1,200. But I'd never received £1,200. I received about 800 in total, and there are 2 reasons for that. Well, more than 2 reasons, really. First is that Kickstarter are a business. Obviously, they take their cut.
Yeah.
And that's fine. They've got their running costs. They facilitated the campaign. I've got no problem with that. For some reason, Amazon took a cut. Apparently it's because they facilitate the money actually getting to me. Then when it was actually in my PayPal account, because that's where they paid it to, PayPal then charged me to withdraw it to my bank account.
Ah, excellent. So, it's really, you were...
multiple times. And then, of course, HMRC, I had to pay tax on it.
So did it really work out worth doing? Did you have anything left at the end of that? Especially after the HMRC, surely they took nearly all of it, didn't they? That's what they do.
20%.
Jeez, that's a lot.
And thankfully, I sort of got them back, because sort of coming towards the end of the year, I suddenly thought, you know what, I am going to have to pay some more taxes on the comics stuff. I think I need a new laptop, and I can say it's a business expense, because I will use that laptop to go to conventions and keep track of my sales and look up reference images when people ask for a commission of an obscure character I don't know. So that legitimizes it as a business cost. So actually on my taxes, right, that's £250 I'll have back. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but that's how business works.
Yeah, just to go back, I just had a quick look on Wikipedia, and Dungeon Keeper was one of the inspirations for Minecraft. It was a clone of Dwarf Fortress. Dungeon Keeper was an inspiration, and that's why that was in my head.
Right. Dwarf Fortress is where I was.
Yes.
You see. So I was like, no, it's a D, but it's not that D, so...
Anyway, I've sidetracked.
That's fine. But one of the biggest things that made a hole was one guy pledged £200. So obviously when you've made 1,200 on Kickstarter, 200 is a pretty big proportion of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But when it actually came time to collect, because Kickstarter, you put your pledge through, but nothing leaves your bank account until after the Kickstarter has ended.
Ah.
And I don't know what this guy did. He could have gone and bought a Megazord or some video games or what, but when it came time to collect, the money wasn't in his account.
Oh, I didn't know that about Kickstarter.
Yeah, so that
I've never backed anything, to be perfectly honest. So I thought you had to pay up front. I thought that was how it works.
No, not at all. You make your pledge, and then if it gets funded, that's when it comes out.
I suppose that's a logical decision, isn't it? I suppose that's a more logical way to do it.
But it's stung me a couple of times, because I've backed something with like 45 days to go, forgot about it, looked at my accounts and been like, right, that's my budget for this month. And then looked and been like, why am I overdrawn? Oh shit, Kickstarter!
Yeah, I can imagine that being a bit of a pain.
Yeah, it is. Kickstarter is never a guaranteed thing, and unfortunately the developers of Dimension Drive, a 2 awesome games studio, they found this out the hard way. They had a Kickstarter campaign for their game. They had a €30,000 funding goal. They were about $7,000 short on the final day, and suddenly one mysterious backer gave them the $7,000 that they needed. However, it didn't actually, and this is a sad thing, if it had been a case of they reached their funding goal, Kickstarter had gone to take the $7,000 and it wasn't there, they'd have still gotten the other $23,000.
Yeah.
What happened here was that before the campaign ended, Kickstarter contacted the developers, at least from the news articles I've read and my understanding of it, and said, look, this pledge was made on a fraudulent credit card, so we actually have to take it away. So these guys, cheered and celebrated and thought, yes, we've done it. And then at the last second, some troll with a stolen credit card is like, lol, nope.
It makes you wonder, though, if someone's going to be, like, I know I've made this point earlier on to you before we were recording, but if you were going to steal someone's credit card, it's just a really weird thing to spend the money on. Like, you have to be really dedicated to trolling this company to fraudulently steal someone's credit card details and use that for it. It's just a really weird way to steal someone's money, rather than buying something. Like, you could buy yourself a car and have it delivered or something like that, or go out and spend loads of money and have a really posh meal in a fancy restaurant, which they can't then take back from you. But this doesn't get anyone anything apart from upsetting people. It's just, I understand that that's what trolling is for. I understand that's the whole point of it, but that just seems really over the top cruel, even for the internet standards.
And here's a weird thing. I mean, and I don't know where this guy's based, the guy who stole the credit card, but I know, and I have to be very careful what I say here, because my day job, I am under certain NDAs and certain information is restricted, but there is a difference between you take someone's credit card, and they suffer a financial loss, you know, they actually lose money, or you steal someone's credit card, but actually nothing goes out from that credit card. You're looking at two very different situations and two very different sets of consequences.
Yeah.
So maybe this guy was playing it smart in that regard, I don't know.
It just seems like a really over-the-top thing to do. It just seems like, even if you wanted to do it, it's a lot of effort to steal. I mean, I've never done it, obviously, but it seems like it'd be a lot of effort to steal someone's credit card. Unless they just had
that.
the
It's like,
details.
just in case any police are listening.
Yeah, if anyone important's listening, I've never done that and never would, of course. But it just seems like, unless they had those details sitting on file, waiting to be used for something, and it was just their day job sort of thing, that was what they did, stole people's information. It seems a really weird thing to go out of your way to do.
Yeah,
but then I suppose I'm not in the mind of the kind of person who does it. Maybe that did sound like a good idea to them.
I don't think trolls are in their right mind to begin with, but it doesn't surprise me that they'd do this, and the reason it doesn't surprise me is because swatting is a thing that exists.
And what's swatting?
You're not familiar? Really? I thought you'd know swatting. Okay. It's,
but, not for me, for the listeners, of course.
I see. Well, you're familiar with Twitch.
I'm familiar with Twitch, yes.
Yeah, so someone will be streaming a video game on Twitch, and you've got, like, the main camera will be the game footage, and then you've got their little webcam in the bottom corner with them sitting there. So someone will wait for a Twitch stream to go live. They'll get the person's personal information, their name and address. What's it called? Doxing? I think that's the right word.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
So they'll dox them, they'll get their personal information, then they'll call the police and they'll say that there's a hostage threat or a bomb situation.
Yeah, I've seen videos of this.
Yeah, and then this person's like completely oblivious playing the game, and these guys with guns will bust their door down, pin them to the floor, and it's all on camera, so whoever called them is sat there watching the whole thing unfold.
Yeah, I didn't realise there was a word for it, but I have seen videos. I've seen videos on YouTube of that happening, and it is staggering the lengths people will go to upset other people. I mean, you really would have to have it out for someone to do that, or you have to just be a really sick-minded person, I guess. Not necessarily have it out for someone, just a really strange individual.
But we have seen an arrest for it. So finally, we've actually seen someone go down for swatting now. So
that's good.
In the right direction, because it's endangering people's lives. Because if someone thinks that there's a legitimate threat to life, they go in with a gun.
I've seen it. Yeah, they absolutely do. They do not mess around.
No, and there is every chance that if there's even the slightest misunderstanding, one of those guns could be fired.
Yeah, well, I mean, they should go in full force. Of course they should. There's no reason they shouldn't.
Yeah, but you think now, I think they know it's happened enough times that they're starting to clock onto it. And, it's wasting their time, it's putting people in danger unnecessarily. They want these guys.
Of course, but the problem is they can't not take the threat seriously. It's like the whole thing of when stupid kids don't want to go to work and they call in a bomb threat and then they get surprised when they get in trouble.
Oh, our hometown had a beautiful one of those about this time last year.
Oh, I remember this, yeah.
I can't say on the podcast because I'm just being cautious. I can't say what company it was, but I can say, for our understanding, I've worked for the company and you've worked for the company. This 18-year-old kid wanted his brother to get off work, so he called in a bomb threat. Now, the police caught him within half an hour, and do you want to know where this kid was?
Where was he?
He was at the phone booth he called in the bomb threat from.
There's just
Norwich.
There's just beyond belief, isn't it? You wouldn't think anyone could be that stupid, but clearly we are wrong.
I lived in Norfolk long enough, man.
Born and raised.
There's a reason I left. You should join me. It's great out here.
I'm alright for now. Maybe one day.
But I do. I think it's absolutely silly what some people will do. But then a lot of people seem to assume that gamers are naive and that gamers are idiots. I mean, you only have to look at Steam Greenlight and see some of the absolute pieces of shit shovelware going through that to know that some people are just out to make a quick buck.
Yeah, I was going to say that's less stupid people there, and more people being actually quite smart and capitalising on basically an exploit in the market and the way Steam runs its practices. But then we could go on about Steam's faults all night. That's a whole different kettle of fish, that is.
Yeah, Gabe Newell is anything but a god, you know.
And I say that as someone who owns a lot of games on Steam and spends a lot of time playing games on Steam. I still see the faults in it.
And
absolutely.
You're also a guy who, and obviously I know this from knowing you, but you're a guy who's very aware that one day that library of games could go bye-bye.
Oh yeah, I'm fully aware of that at all times, and it is an absolutely terrifying thought.
Yeah.
I really wish I'd bought every single one of those games in a physical copy, but it's too late now, and I just still carry on buying them.
Not even physical will save you, though. I mean, I've stupidly, and I really need to trade it in and just get rid of it, because I'm not enjoying it in the slightest. I bought Destiny on launch, right?
Yeah.
Physical disc. However, even the campaign requires an internet connection. You can't play offline single player. It just does not exist. So when that game stops being supported, when the servers are no longer there, I've got a useless disc. That's what it comes down to.
It's infuriating in a way, isn't it, that they can... But then I suppose that's how everything is these days. Everything's just getting more and more digital. Our music's more digital. I know it's not quite the same thing because I don't download it, but if Spotify went down, I'd be lost. I listen to everything on Spotify. I don't buy music at all anymore. I listen to it all through Spotify, and if it's not on Spotify, I don't listen to it. Simple as.
But it's what we're becoming accustomed to. I mean, what worries me is I got into gaming... I don't know if this is the same for you, because we were a little bit older when we met, like 4 or 5 years old, but I got into gaming when I was, according to my mother, about 2.5 to 3, and I was playing Sonic the Hedgehog on the Master System at the time. But for me, very much my childhood is contained entirely in the Mega Drive and PlayStation 1 libraries.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively. And that entire collection is sat next to me right now. It's up here in this attic room with me. All of the hardware still works. And I can go replay and relive any of those memories anytime I want. For Maya and Grayson, my kids, obviously Grayson's only about 10 months old, but Maya will be 3 in August. And she started to show an interest. I've had her playing a little bit of Sonic CD. She plays Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. She's terrible at them, but she gives it a go. And I've also given her a little Game Boy Advance SP, and that's got like Super Mario World, you know, the GBA version, Sonic Advance, that kind of thing. She plays that. But for her, you know, the equivalent of our Mega Drive and PlayStation 1 is going to be the PlayStation 4. And we've already seen, you know, things like PT. It's scrubbed. It's gone from the store. People are saying they can't re-download it if they had downloaded it in the past. You know, hard drives in those PS4s are going to fail. The amount of copies available of PT is going to fall. So when she gets to our age, if she wants to look back on the games she grew up with, she might not be able to, because multiplayer servers will be offline. You know, some entire games, Destiny again, will be unplayable.
The only resolution to that, the only biggest difference, and it works in our favour as well, is the internet. The resources of the internet. People are so good at documenting things and preserving them. I mean, you can play...
Piracy is probably going to be the answer
to a lot. And that's what it will be. And then that's what it is for a lot of games we had when we were younger as well. Like a lot of games that are harder to find. You can just download them quite easily. It's not a problem. And I think that will be the solution to their problem. I think that's what...
Star Online, people run their own servers. You know, Sega don't give a damn.
Yeah, there'll be websites in the future. I mean, there already is now, obviously, emulation and everything. But there'll be websites in the future dedicated to PS4 games, Xbox One games... Once all that emulation gets cracked and all our computers are even more powerful, it will be more, I think it'll be harder for them, but I don't think it'll be a problem. I think if anything, if the internet didn't exist, we probably wouldn't have access to as many of the games we used to play as we would, as we have now. Because obviously I can go and play that Sega Saturn you bought me any time.
Yes.
I can go and play my PS2, wherever it is, somewhere in this house, any time. But at the same time, I can play all the PS2 games through the computer. Not that I would download ROMs, of course, that I don't own the real games for, just to cover myself there. But I mean, I can...
that. Like, I didn't get a single... Well, apart from Rise Star, I don't have a single treasure game on the Mega Drive, but I am aware they made some of the Mega Drive's best games, and I've been able to go play things like Gunstar Heroes that I otherwise might not have been able to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, emulation is the god-all of games, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's an absolute miracle. When you play some of these emulators and stuff, and the absolute quality of these games run, I mean, obviously it's not the case in every single one. Like, I still have yet to find a good Sega Saturn emulator, so if anyone can point me towards one that works properly, I will love you forever. But I mean, you run like the Mega Drive emulators and stuff, and it's just flawless. They run better than the actual Mega Drives did.
This is a good point, because obviously we live in the UK, and in Europe, all of the TVs at the time ran at a 50 hertz refresh rate.
They did
so that meant the consoles were built for that as well. So our Sonic is physically slower than the US release of Sonic, and that's a weird thought. It's to the point that some of our PlayStation 2 games actually ask us, do you want this to run in 50 or 60? Because your TV might support 60.
Yes, absolutely.
And like, if we go back and play the emulated version of Sonic, I was seriously like, this was never this fast. What is this?
Yeah, and I mean, things like that play a big factor. You see that, I mean, I don't know how much you follow speedrunning, but I love my speedrunning. I love watching Twitch and all that. And you watch...
Here's the weird thing. I love speedrunning, but I hate it at the same time. I love Spelunky. I've never been able to beat it. I've seen a guy beat Spelunky in 1 minute and 48 seconds. I wanted to go into a corner and cry.
Well, you know me. I'm a massive fan of The Binding of Isaac, the original and Rebirth, and that is one of the most RNG games you'll ever play. And
random number generator for those unfamiliar.
Thank you. And yeah, watching people do speedruns of that, and they do some incredible things. And when I play it, I'm smashing my controller on the desk because I keep messing it up all the time, and they're beating the whole game in like 10 minutes.
Is this natural, or is this tool-assisted?
No, it's all completely natural.
I've seen some insane Mario 64 ones where they've used an N64 emulator, but they slow it down to like 1 frame per second so they can do all these impossible moves and inputs, and then they record all the controller inputs and timings, then they run the game again, but at, full 30, 60 frames per second, whatever it is for an N64, and obviously it plays back all of the inputs in real time, and they record that, and it's insane what they get away with.
Yeah.
We will also use emulators for, if I'm doing a review of a retro game, the actual video quality I will get if I try to do it through a capture card is nothing compared to the pixel-perfect video I will get through an emulator.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. And I mean, they do, going back to the tool-assisted speedrun thing, I don't know if you ever watch the speedrun sort of events they do, like Summer Games Done Quick and Awesome Games Done Quick, which one of those must be coming around soon. Yeah, and they do the tool-assisted speedruns there sometime, and some of them, as you say, are just phenomenal. And speaking of events coming up soon, I mean, E3 can't be far away, can it? That's next month, isn't it?
That is, but you wouldn't know it with all the bloody game announcements coming out now.
Yeah, well, they always do. That's the same thing every year, isn't it? Pre-E3 game announcements is a thing. Very much a thing. But I haven't heard anything about E3 yet, to be honest. I'm guessing all the regular people are there, are they?
Yeah, it's sort of everyone's doing a show, but I don't know. E3 doesn't feel like E3 anymore.
No, well, I mean, I think the problem I have with E3 these days is, I don't have any of the next gen or current gen consoles as they're known now. I don't have a PS4, I don't have an Xbox One, and I don't have a Wii U. The only thing I would be interested in is anything that's on the PC as well at the moment. I'm hoping to get an Xbox One this year, but I haven't yet.
I strongly recommend a PlayStation 4 with Infamous Second Son and Knack, 2 very strong console exclusives.
And fair enough, and I'd love to go with your suggestion, but you know full well why I've got to go with the Xbox. Rock Band 4 just around the corner. Rock Band 4 and its DLC all being supported from previous games, I would lose so much money and so many songs if I go with PS4. And ideally I'd like to go PS4, but I think it's just going to have to be Microsoft this time.
For the sake of one game and preserving DLC.
You don't know how much that game means to me, clearly.
No, you told me how many songs you've downloaded, what the cost per song was, and we worked out that you've spent around £300 on Rock Band songs.
Give or take, it could well be more than that. And if the Xbox had like a game time, like a in-game timer, like Steam does, I dread to think how many hours I've put into Rock Band, easily in the hundreds.
Oh,
easily.
no, Steam, this is a real bad one. Steam now does software. And you know me, I do a lot of 3D modelling and that kind of stuff. I also still dick about with RPG Maker because RPG Maker's on Steam now, and it takes me straight back to high school nostalgia to fiddle around in that thing. It's all inconsequential, but hey, it's fun. And that now shows you how much time you spend in software. And I was looking at Silo 2, which I use for base modeling, and Blender, which I use for UV unwrapping, texture mapping, etc., rigging and animation. And between the two, it looks like I've spent about 4 consecutive months of my life without sleep in them.
I wouldn't be surprised if you had.
Yeah, and
it's the kind of thing you do.
It's just the Steam versions. I had these before they were available through Steam.
So, okay, what is your most played game on Steam then? I know you don't use Steam a lot compared to me, but what would you say?
I don't. It's probably... It's going to be between a couple here. It's not going to be Spelunky or Rogue Legacy, because I've got those on PS4, and that's why I mainly play them. It's either going to be Payday 2. Payday 2 is a definite contender.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Actually, Payday 2 might just win it, to be honest. Yeah, it is. It is. I'm looking at my Steam list right now. By a long shot, it's Payday 2.
Fantastic. Mine's still the original Left 4 Dead.
Yeah?
Which I've got 150 hours in or something like that. Not a lot compared to some people in their games, but I put a lot of hours into that game. Massive fan.
You never want to look at your old Pokemon cartridges.
No, I've got...
Exact reason you boot it up and it's right there.
I had easily over 150, 200 hours in Pokemon Gold on the Game Boy Color. Easily.
You remember you used to go around each other's houses with the link cables and we'd have tournaments. And one of our friends, I can't remember if it was Shay, Ruben or Neil, it was one of the 3, but they had Game Sharked a Mew. And this was before we knew what a Game Shark was, so we thought it was legitimate, right? And we set up a tournament, and the winner of the tournament got to do the cloning glitch for Mew. Do you remember that?
I do remember, yeah.
You also remember who whooped your ass to win that Mew?
Oh, no, that escapes me. That does. It's all a bit of a blur.
Really, because I've still got that Articuno, and it will take any of your team any day. But we do have one way to preserve old games. So supposedly the UK's first video game museum has opened in Nottingham, and I don't say supposedly doubting that it's opened. It's there. It's about a 3-hour drive from me, and probably like a 5-hour drive for you. But it does exist, and it's open. The reason I say supposedly is because we have one in Swindon. And Swindon's only about a 30-minute drive from where I am. And I've been there. It's the Museum of Computing, and it's got like some really old, like it goes from typewriters through, but about 80% of their stuff is gaming, and you can just go in anytime and you can like boot up a ZX Spectrum or a Commodore 64 or an Atari 2600, and it goes like right the way through to, last time I went they had a PS2.
That makes you feel old when you say that, doesn't it? That a PS2 being in a museum.
Yeah, I know, right?
I still feel like I should be playing the PS2. I feel like I should be able to go downstairs and just jump on it. It doesn't feel like it was ever that long ago, really, but I suppose it really was, wasn't it?
I still am. That's the scary thing. And I mean, when we were first playing PS2, we were emulating Mega Drive games and being like, oh, remember all these old games. Actually, if you look at the length of time passed, we're playing PS4 now, and the PS2 should be the equivalent of the Mega Drive, back then.
Oh, don't say that. That makes me feel even older.
Dude, you've just turned 26 and you don't feel old enough.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard of this museum, as you were just mentioning, until today. You're the one who told me about it a while ago, but I did read the article about it, and it actually looks really good.
It does.
I really want to go, and I wish you'd told me about this sooner, because I've been off work this week. I've been off all work. I had holiday, and I could have gone. I could have gone for a day. I had time.
Well, you could have said
now.
to your missus, right, get in the car. I'm going to surprise you.
As you say, it's a long old drive.
And then when she turned up, she'd have been like, for fuck's sake, Richie.
Yeah, really? That would have definitely been her reaction, but it would have been worth it. As you say, it's about 3.5, 4 hours from here.
I still remember her reaction when we went to Western Supersonic.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was something. I mentioned about going to that again next year, and she was just like, "I'll stay here." I was like, "Okay."
What you should try to do, I'm actually looking forward to this more than E3. I'm going to MCM Expo, well, it's called MCM Comic Con now, but who are they fooling? It's still mostly anime and video games. There's like 2 people selling actual Marvel DC comics. Never the same 2 people. And they're just looking around like, you said there'd be comics. But that's the end of the month. It's over the bank holiday weekend, which also happens to be my birthday weekend. I'm selling the art prints, the comics, etc. Plug. But it's going to be exciting because you get there the Friday. Well, this year is different. The Friday's a full day instead of a half day, so I'll be getting there Thursday to set up my stall. Okay?
Yep.
No one else is there. It's just other people setting up their stalls, so it's a perfect opportunity. I always go around like all of the retro game stalls, and there are never any bargains at MCM when you turn up, people, because I've already been.
I believe that.
Oh, yes. The missus is always angry with me because I always spend far more than I make at MCM. And it's a habit. It's never going to change. But the game booths there are actually pretty decent, and when you're setting up on Thursday, they actually need to make sure that everything's running okay, so you don't have to queue for 3 hours, but you can go see a replica, full-scale replica of the Batmobile from Arkham Knight, play Arkham Knight for a bit. You know, it's just... And it's before anyone else gets in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the website at the moment. Obviously, I've never been, but the ticket prices are actually quite reasonable.
They really
what you
are.
Get.
And if you are ever, interested in going, when I buy a table for selling, I get 2 wristbands. And those wristbands, basically they're exhibitor wristbands. You get to cut every single queue to get into the building, and trust me, those queues go out the Excel Centre, down past the Fox Bar to the DLR rail station, and then like round a corner again. They're insane. But you get to just walk past all of those people queuing, oftentimes in the rain. You go in like the secret little side door, and you're in, and it's sometimes a whole day before it's open to the public that you can go in.
Yeah.
And, I get the second wristband anyway. Another friend has called it for this one, but if you're ever interested...
Yeah, well, I mean, keep me in mind for next year then, if you go to it, if you happen to be exhibiting next year.
It's twice a year. It will run in October.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, yeah, well, keep me in mind then. That might be of interest, actually.
Yeah, it's a good show. The only thing I would say to any listeners who are considering going, avoid Saturday like the plague. When I first started going, it was 7 years ago. It's actually where I met the woman who is now the mother of my kids, which is scary, actually. 7 years we've been together, and there are 2 strogs, and it's all because of Comic-Con. But when we went 7 years ago, the top attendance rate was like 30,000. Now it's closer to 120,000.
That's insane.
Yeah, you really do. In the middle of Saturday, you will be shoulder to shoulder. And even if you're not walking around, you will be moving involuntarily just because the crowd is sort of it's like an undercurrent in a sea.
well, maybe I'll have to consider that then.
Yeah,
wait, jump on that straight away.
Friday and Sunday, those are your days. Luckily, I don't mind the Saturday. The Saturday is when I'm sat behind my table. I've got, my own personal space, which is very important to me. I don't do people very well.
Sure.
No one can come behind the stall unless they're helping me out with the stall. Usually, whichever friend gets the wristband, they then, the cost of the wristband is essentially, if I need to go get food or go to the loo, they have to watch the stall for 5 minutes while I do that. Otherwise, you're there from like 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. with no breaks. You've got that safe little area, there's a lot of people, and you just sort of concentrate Saturday on sell.
Yeah.
And you just get through it. But I could never do Saturday as a civilian again.
No, I'll bear that in mind then. If I do decide to come, I'll come on the Sunday.
It also means when I do come back and we do another episode of the podcast, there'll probably be some games that have yet to release that I'll have played and we can talk about.
Yeah, that I'll know nothing about.
You'll know nothing
You'll
about.
have to do all the talking.
I might be doing a lot of the talking on that one then.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I don't know, I think we do need to... Like, Western Supermare for Western Supersonic, that was a fun road trip. I need to show you the video game arcade in Swindon when you come out to visit us here next time, but I am very tempted to organise a road trip up to this Nottingham arcade as well.
Oh yeah, I'd love to go and check that out at some point. Yeah. Unfortunately, a road trip between us wouldn't really work because we're so far apart. It wouldn't really benefit. One of us would have to travel 4 hours to then travel another 3 hours. So,
the thing is, where we're positioned, it's Nottingham is sort of... I've been there before for a convention called GemuCon, and it's... For Norwich, from here, it's sort of like an L shape, you know. I'd have to drive up, and you'd have to drive, well, it'd be west, and we'd just have to meet there, really.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now I just need to learn to drive.
Yeah, that would help. It's a long old walk.
In fairness, I mean, most places with... Oh my word, I just noticed that Nottingham Con, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at photos of it as we talk about it. They've got on the wall a big old poster of the entirety of Green Hill, looks like Act 1. Just
yeah,
on the wall.
I saw that on there. That looked really cool.
That's insane. Like, we've got to go check this thing out. I'm not entirely sure that official PlayStation magazine deserves a space in a shelf, in a cabinet, but yeah, it looks like it could be fun. Certainly a day out, at the very least.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, if you were going to do it, you'd have to go whole hog, wouldn't you? You'd have to spend a day doing it. It's a long way to go for just half an hour.
Yeah. Although I have this horrible feeling that I would get in there and I'd just have, you know, my other half behind me tutting, going, well, they don't have half of what you've got.
Yeah, I think you probably could open up and charge people to come into your house.
It's like, this is room 1. Of how many? About 4.
And you probably could as well, that's the funny thing. You laugh about it, but you probably could.
Yeah, it's scary. But it just keeps growing. That's the weird thing. Like, have you ever done that thing where you order something and you forget you've ordered it, and then it turns up and it's like a surprise present from yourself to yourself?
No, I don't order very much. I really should. I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that feeling. I've never had that.
Yeah, I always like, if it's a particularly, say there's 3 options for delivery, and it's like first class, second class, etc. I will usually go with the longest delivery option, partly because I'm really tight, but also partly because you get that effect. The downside is if it comes on a day when I'm not working from home, so if I'm in the office and it turns up, because then the phone at my desk goes off, and everyone I work with can hear her going, "What have you ordered now? There's a package for you!" And you just know at that point you're in trouble.
Yeah, well, see, I get around that. When I order things, I have them delivered to my work. So I get around that.
Smart.
See, you got to think about these things.
You really do. I think as well, like, my PS4 has betrayed me on a couple of occasions, because you can put your PS4 into rest mode. And then if you buy something from the store, like on your mobile phone, never the PC at work, of course, because I do work on the PC at work, you can then have it start downloading to your PS4 so that when you get home it's ready to play.
Yes.
Cool little feature, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not so cool on the day that New and Tasty comes out and you get a phone call going, "The PlayStation 4 just turned itself on. What did you buy?" Because, like, digital purchases through, like, Steam, etc., I used to be able to skate under her radar because there was nothing for her to see.
Yes.
And this just completely screws me up.
Yeah, see, I'm lucky I don't have that problem, because I haven't got any generation consoles. I've just got poor Xbox 360, which can't do anything fancy at all.
No. And everyone's now pulling support for.
Yes, no one wants to develop for it anymore.
Does your other half have a moan at you if you buy video games?
No, because she doesn't really know, to be honest. I don't tell her. Probably for the exact reason of being afraid of being told off. I just tend not to mention it.
That's how they get us, fear.
She doesn't really care, so she just kind of, all the games probably look the same to her.
Right.
I did get that yesterday, actually. I bought a very late birthday present for my sister. I bought her the new Tomb Raider.
Oh, right. Did
for
you
the
get
PS4.
a definitive edition? Or
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
And I picked it up at CEX, and this is while we were in the city yesterday. We were in the city very briefly, and no, it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before, tell a lie.
Okay.
And she wanted to pick up a couple of bits, and I decided to get her birthday present because it was a bit late.
Yeah.
And because we split up for a little while, and when I went back to meet her, and I was sitting down on a bench...
Not as in split up, as in...
No,
went to
as
one
in...
shop, she went to another shop, people.
And when she came back, the first thing she said, I got that stern voice that you probably get, and she said, "What have you bought?" And I was just like, "It's not for me, honestly."
It's those exact words as well.
I just turned into a child and was just like, "I didn't
mean it. It
No.
just sort of jumped.
Just a present."
It's
But yeah.
though. Like,
I possibly could have got in trouble then, but I didn't because it wasn't for me. So
fair enough. It's a strange thing. Like, we went through stages. So 7 years ago, she could beat Kingdom Hearts 2 on her own. Not that Kingdom Hearts 2 is particularly difficult. Every fight is mash X until you win. Unlike Kingdom Hearts 1, which was a lot slower, more methodical. Anyway, tangent, let's avoid that. But, you know, she could play games on her own competently. She would actually fight me at Soul Calibur 2, which is the other game I was going to mention earlier with Masters of Terrascasi, is what we used to play a hell of a lot.
absolutely.
I got the HD remake of that, by the way. It's
Any good?
so nice. Yeah, it's so responsive and looks so clear. And anyway, on track. She would actually fight me and stuff, and it was great. I thought, I've got a gaming girlfriend. This is perfect. Then we had the first couple of times. She had her own Wii. I wasn't particularly interested in it, and she was playing. It was a Rising Star Games title she was playing. And it was, you played as a boy, and he was meant to be the last of humanity, and there was a girl with short silver hair and like a blue dress. I can't recall the name of it, but someone will probably in the comments be like, "It's this game, you dunce!" And she was at a boss battle. She was fighting like a giant crane with like a wrecking ball on it. Couldn't beat it. I hadn't touched the game, I hadn't really been watching her play it, and she said, just kept complaining that she couldn't beat this boss. So I picked it up, and I beat the boss on the first go. That was it. She put the game down at that point. She sort of would not touch it again. And then the next time we were out, she came up to me in a store holding... Like, she really likes her JRPGs and her anime-styled games. And she's like, "This looks like it's got a really interesting story. Will you play it for me and I can watch?" And so for a while, that's what we did, you know. She was interested in the game, I would play through it, she would just catch the story beats, and I was like, this is awesome. But good God, has she made me play a lot of shit. And it's also come back on me in other ways. Like, I still have not finished The Last of Us, because I sat down to play it for the first time, and she sat next to me, and there are two words which just cut me to the bone when I hear them from her. What's this?
Yeah.
And that's it. She's in at that point. And if you dare play it without her and she misses something, the wrath of hell itself will be upon you. Just as a disclaimer, I do love her. She's just very scary when she's mad. I think that's the same for all men, really. Back me up here at all?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. She's also petrified of The Last of Us, and she can only stand to watch maybe 5 to 15 minutes at a time before I have to turn it off. So I've still got it sat there, the PS3 version, which I bought near launch, and I'm not even a quarter of the way through that game. Likewise, I only just beat Far Cry 3 for very much the same reason. And Far Cry 4 sat right there like, you gonna play me? You bought me weeks ago, you gonna play me?
Yeah, see, I don't have that problem. I bought LA Noire because Sophie wanted to play that, or she wanted to watch me play it, and then I played it once, and then I offered to play it again, and she was just like, nah. And I was like, oh, alright then. And that was the end of that. So I don't have that problem at all.
Here's the thing, not only do I have that problem, but she then has the gall to have a go at me for the size of my backlog.
Yeah, I get that talk as well. Haven't you got enough games? Yes. That's not the point.
Every time you're even looking at one, you've got Bioshock Infinite, you've not touched that. They just go through the list, and I don't know how they memorised the list.
I was looking through my Steam, I think it was yesterday, and I was trying to play some games I've had for a long time that I've never started. And I've got games on there I bought in 2012 that I've never even installed. It's just ridiculous.
2012. Wow.
Yeah. And one of them was...
It keeps track. It tells you.
Yeah, one of
I
them
would
was...
rather be ignorant.
I don't know if you ever played it. It's a game called The Tiny Bang Story.
Not even heard of it, to be honest.
It's a puzzle game. It's not long. It only took me like 3 hours to finish it. Really, really good. Recommend it. It's a little indie type game. It's really, really good. If anyone's listening and has played it, then I'm sure you'll agree with me. It's an absolute classic. If you like puzzle games, then you'll like that. Definitely. It's very much a point and click type puzzle game in that you just kind of look for stuff and then you have to solve puzzles.
So we talking more Broken Sword or more Myst?
I have no idea. It's very much a click and point type game and
rub one thing against another thing until the door unlocks.
that sort of thing, yeah. But it was surprisingly enjoyable, and I'm really glad. But it had a really nice soundtrack as well. Really enjoyable, calming soundtrack, which was very nice. Nice. It was a nice, refreshing change from the sort of games I usually play, like Grand Theft Auto and Killing Floor and all that sort of stuff. It was very, very different, and I enjoyed it.
Speaking of Grand Theft Auto, have you been keeping up with the 6-star wanted level?
No, what's that?
Well, you know, every GTA up to 5 has had a 6-star wanted level where the army actually comes after you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Grand Theft Auto 5, you can only get up to 5 stars.
Yeah.
Well, some people have been tinkering around in the PC version, and there is actually reference in the code to a player with a 6-star wanted level.
Ah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and what they've been able to do is they've been able to actually modify the game and give themselves 6 stars.
Nice.
And the game continues functioning, it displays all 6 stars. And unsurprisingly, if they then try to give themselves 7 stars, the game crashes because it doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So the 6th star is clearly intentional, but the army still doesn't come after them. It's exactly the same as 5 stars. But someone's now modded the game further to then make the army come after you.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, like, this feature doesn't appear to be in the game. We would like it to be in the game, so we're just going to do it ourselves. But it does make me wonder. I mean, that's like a staple of the Grand Theft Auto series. How come a fan has had to put that back in?
I don't know. It seems a little bit strange. I was a little confused why there was only 5 stars when I played it initially, a couple of years ago when it first came out. I don't know.
Do what I did, and you just you kept shooting things and blowing things up, and you're like, come on, up already.
Well, no, really, because I hardly ever got to 5 stars because obviously the police are just ridiculous in that game.
It is like trying to fight off a Terminator, isn't it?
The only way I can do it is on the PC now. I've got mine modded, so it's got the invincibility, which I use for just messing around and stuff. It's just so much easier when you don't die.
It reminds me of way back, like Grand Theft Auto 3 and Grand Theft Auto Vice City. You'd get your friends round and you'd do a pass the pad session where you'd put in the cheat for 6 stars, put in the cheat for all weapons, and you just timed how long they could live, and as soon as they were arrested or dead, the pad went to the next person, who would have to immediately put in 6 stars and all weapons again.
Yeah, absolutely classic. Yeah, I still love doing that now. We do that every so often when Sophie's sister's boyfriend comes down. He lives down in London. When he comes down, we do that on GTA 5.
Well, technically comes up.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah. We go to the airport in GTA 5, grab a plane, see how long you can fly around for. Never usually very long. You soon get shot down.
I always find the most addictive things in games are the games that you make for yourself within the games. And I don't know if this sort of comes back to speedrunning, because that's sort of setting yourself a game within the game. But like people who try to do like no-kill runs of games and things like that, I just think it's interesting, because you don't know if the developer ever planned for that, if they were ever designing with that kind of thing in mind.
No, and Grand Theft Auto is a very fine example of that, actually, because I watch quite a lot of Grand Theft Auto speedruns all the way from sort of 3 up to San Andreas 4 and then 5, and a lot of the categories are sort of extra things like not dying and any percent and 100% and all of certain collectibles and all this sort of stuff. And it was never ever intended that would be part of the game, but it just makes it so much more interesting to watch when people set their own goals, as you say.
You are something of a speedrun junkie as well. I mean, you
sit
there for days and just binge them.
A few years ago, I think it might have been for her birthday, I bought Sophie a tablet, a Samsung tablet.
Right.
And she doesn't use it anymore because she couldn't if she wanted to, because I spent all my time watching Twitch on it. I have it with me. I like some, because I'm more of a shower person, just to detract completely, than a bath person. But I like having a bath simply so I can put the tablet on and watch Twitch. Speed running. Oh, love it. Absolute junkie. As you say, absolute junkie.
I know plenty of people that'll do that with like either a tablet or a laptop. Slightly riskier with a laptop, of course. They'll do that with like YouTube or Twitch or Netflix.
It's nice because it's something you don't really have to pay attention to. It's not like watching a TV program where if you don't listen to something, then nothing else makes sense. Because it's usually a game you've seen several times, and the person's usually resetting the game over and over again anyway. You don't really have to focus too much, and that's kind of where the addiction comes from, because I can have it on while I'm cooking and things like that as well. I'll have the tablet on, maybe someone doing speedruns of Binding of Isaac, and because it's never the same thing and it's not story-driven, it doesn't matter.
Have you ever made the mistake of taking it to bed with you? Because what I've done in the past, like when I was a little kid, I used to sit in bed either playing games, and the Vita is guilty of this as well as my tablet, either playing games or just watching a TV show. And eventually you'd get the urge to roll over, and you'd be like, no, I'm not going to roll over, I'm having a good time. And then you'd sort of be like, well, I'll roll over and I'll just listen to it. And as soon as you rolled over, that's it, you were asleep. There was no two ways about it, and that's why you'd fight it, because you knew. But with the tablet and the Vita, they just roll over with me.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Oh yeah, I lay in bed and watch them. I've got a little sort of stool next to the bed. I sit it on.
Oh no, you've actually planned it out so you can be like, right, you can...
Well, the stool's already there. I didn't put it there specifically for purpose. The stool already existed. It's
so
just,
it wasn't you were
it's
like,
just
I need
convenient.
a stool for this. You just saw one and went, oh hey.
No, it's just part of the little dressing table thing we have. So it just works out quite nicely.
That's forgivable. It'd have been on purpose. But what I always do, and I upset myself so much with it, I put myself off playing games quite a lot with it, is I'll watch a speedrun and be like, that was badass. I'll go downstairs, I'll try to replicate it and just fail horribly.
Oh yeah, I've tried to speedrun a few games. And one of the games I have tried to speedrun is Sonic R.
Yes.
Because it's such a short game, it only takes 15 minutes to run it from start to finish.
You know what you've just done? You've just put the entire soundtrack on loop inside my head.
Yeah, absolute classic. I have that on my phone and listen to it quite frequently in the car, which is nice. But yeah, it's one of the few games I've tried to speedrun, and you really have to be patient to speedrun, which is something I'm not.
No,
I've got no patience for it whatsoever, and you know me full well that I'm not a patient person. So having to keep restarting over the slightest little thing is just it's really fun to watch, but it just frustrated me to do it. So I don't think I'll ever be a speedrunner.
But it's like new and tasty. I am determined that my first run of that will be a perfect run of that. So the second a Madokan dies, throw everything up in the air, go back.
Yeah, I know that feeling. That's like when they put optional things in missions and games. I hate it. I absolutely hate it for two reasons. A, I think it makes the game even more annoying to play, and B, I have to get them all. And if anything goes wrong, I have to then do the mission again, and I just want to play the game.
Assassin's Creed, the perfect synchronization requirement.
Oh god, don't get me started on that. And things like Hitman as well, where you have to do things in a certain way. Oh.
No, Hitman is my toy box. At least Hitman 2 and Hitman Blood Money, they're my toy boxes. Contracts and the most recent Absolution, no thanks. But those two games, like especially the first level of Hitman 2, the Mansion, it's an intro level. It's gonna be really easy, but the amount of freedom it gives you...
Oh yeah.
Easy. You know, you can go about it a million different ways.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Weird, the games that do have that kind of replayability, and it's never the games I really expect. Like, I got Shadow of Mordor for my PS4, right? And I still haven't finished the story on it, but I have clocked up around about 30 hours. And the reason I've been able to do that is because I've just been running around, like, killing orc war chiefs, and just screwing with, like, the Uruk chain of command.
Yeah.
That whole Nemesis system was sort of like a side note originally, and it's where I've put 90% of my time.
Yeah, well, that's part of the fun of games, isn't it? Making it your own game. You don't necessarily have to follow the story.
Exactly, especially when we get some of the stories that we have in games.
Yeah, precisely.
What I would really like on that note is, anyone listening, if you go into a game and you make up your own little meta game, like, Streets of Rage 1, before there was an official duel mode, me and my little brother, we would spend more time beating up each other in the streets than actually beating up any of the goons, because we couldn't be bothered to get all the way to Mr. X to do it properly, frankly. But and that was far more fun. So if you've got any stories like that, leave them in the comments below. We might even pick up on a couple of them next time and, have a talk about them, have a chuckle. You might even do some of the things that we've done, and sometimes you meet people and it's like, oh god, you did that too? I thought I was the only one. So those could be some fun moments. But by all means, please, leave them down there in the comments for us to look at. I really, really hope that you've enjoyed this cast. I do want to do this regularly. As I say, if I can, then weekly would be ideal. Fortnightly is the most likely and the most probable, and monthly is if I just get lazy, forget, get ill, or go away on holiday. Although I suppose in that case, Richie, if you were willing, you could step in.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. This has been good fun. I've enjoyed this.
Absolutely. And, of course, you've helped me out with this one, but I would love it if you would be a regular on the show, and from the sounds of it, that's kind of what you would like to.
I would be honoured, of course.
Fantastic. Well, everyone, that is the British Gaming Podcast signing off for now, but thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, if you've made it to this far, congratulations. You've done better than I have.
A whole hour and a half.
But thank you very much. It's much appreciated if you have. Even if you haven't listened to all of it. If you listen to 10 minutes, it's still much appreciated.
Although if they've listened to 10 minutes, they won't hear that.
It might just be it might be the last 10 minutes.
It might be. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, take care.